Once upon a time, there was a television and radio presenter in Britain back in the 1960s. He began to host a very popular BBC music show called Top of the Pops. That show made him a very well-known celebrity. Then in the 1970s, he started a show called Jim'll Fix It. On this show, he would receive thousands and thousands of letters from children, and he would read a few of those letters to the audience, and in those letters, the children would want to grant their wishes. So he didn't break their hearts. On the contrary, he won them. Already establishing himself as a British messiah, the hospitals sought for his help to raise the money. Believe it or not, he listened to their calls and raised 40 million pounds in charity. 40 million pounds in charity. This is a massive number for that period of time. His reputation was cemented to be a godly man who is a humble servant, who is dearest and kindest to everyone. Wherever he went, people would wait for his glimpse for hours and would wish that this man will kiss them. They will take it as blessing. He befriended former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher and the royal family. So you can guess that he became a very influential figure in Britain. He became some cult, some saint. He became their national hero who once rendered his valuable service to Britain in the Great War and later on contributed to philanthropy throughout his life. And then one day he died. The British media was mourning, and the general public was also mourning. Wherever the coffin went, his followers went. They just wanted a glimpse of him in the coffin, taking pictures and paying their final respects in the memorial. He was people's servant. They all believed that God took his life, and with his death, with the departure of soul, concluded an era of dedication for serving human and philanthropy. But what they didn't realize was that his death was basically God's act of goodwill, because God put halt to the horror he implanted in scores of British lives who didn't know what he really was for more than 50 years. Almost a year after his death, plenty of reports about his crimes began to surface. A thorough investigation that involved the police and the media concluded, to the nation's utter shock and disbelief, that this man who died last year, who had been serving humanity, philanthropy, who had been giving charity for more than 50 years, the man who was fulfilling wishes of children on his show Jim'll Fix It. This man had sexually abused, assaulted more than 400 people, mostly underaged, as young as 5. The Guardian in 2014 claimed that the number of his victims was more than 1,000. That man was Jimmy Savile. Jimmy Savile was considered an influential television personality in British history for more than 50 years.
What did I ever do to you that you would draw that picture of me?
Everything.
Super times for all. No danger about it. In fact, let me tell you, if you don't work in a hospital, you really are missing something. In fact, you're missing everything.
A few years ago, I came to know about Jimmy Savile, and I was stunned to realize that most of the crimes that he committed was during the time when he was working for BBC and National Health Service. How come no one got suspicious about his mysterious personal life? How come Jimmy Savile never got caught in more than 50 years? I fail to believe that any of BBC or National Health Service had no idea about his crimes. 50 years. Give me a break. I wanted to know the right and convincing answers, and thankfully Netflix decided to commission a two-part documentary about this sex predator, Jimmy Savile, a British horror story. The two parts of the documentary are smartly divided. The first part gives the impression to the audience. It is an introductory part about who Jimmy Savile was. They talk about his success, they talk about his popularity, and they talk about his show Jim Will Fix It, how he was listening to the wishes of those children and he was not breaking their hearts. They are talking about his good points when he was serving humanity. In the second part, the filmmakers tried to locate the signs where Jimmy Savile was pretty close to being caught. The documentary's biggest success is to convince to its audience that Jimmy Savile successfully manipulated and made the fool out of the entire nation. There is numerous footage in the show which shows Jimmy Savile in his interview being asked about his personal, emotional, and sexual aspects of his life. And he speaks a kind of tone that is very convincing to the listeners, and he utters such one-liners that the audience starts laughing, and they begin to believe that Jimmy Savile, as usual, is joking. But he is not joking. He is saying something, he is indicating something which people are not tending to believe. While watching this documentary, especially the second part, my jaw kept dropping and dropping, and I was very angry to the fact. I was observing his one-liners when he was giving the interview, and he was giving all the clues and references about the crimes he committed all these decades, and the audience thought that Jimmy Savile was being Jimmy Savile.
You used to be a wrestler, didn't you?
I still am.
Oh, yeah.
I'm feared in every girls' school in this country.
They were laughing. They were assuming that these were all jokes, because he was not someone to be taken that seriously for the crimes he committed, because he was always a very funny and jolly fellow. No one would ever believe that he can stoop that low to possibly force a girl as young as 8 to have sex with him, someone who was close friends with Margaret, Thatcher, and the royal family. No one would ever believe. The documentary has tried its best to give its audience feel deceived from this disgusting pervert. But I have a feeling that the efforts made in the documentary were still not enough to give a proper exposure about this man, because the most reckoning part of Jimmy Savile's life in brutal crimes was when he died, because he died unhurt. he was never caught. For 50 years he committed crimes and he was never caught. So once he died, a year later, like I said before, people start realizing what person he was or what evil he was. So that part, post-death moments in the documentary, are hardly half an hour. So the makers and researchers couldn't do that justice to the broader detailing of the investigation. They should have given some insiders about Operation Yewtree. That really didn't happen a lot in the documentary. They were more focusing about his humanitarian things that he was doing. I totally get it that they wanted the audience to feel deceived after showing so much good things he did in his life, but that was way too much on screen time. So who is responsible for creating Jimmy Savile out of Sir James Wilson Vincent Savile? Yeah, Sir. He was knighted in 1990. I firmly believe that the blame goes on Margaret Thatcher's government and the BBC. I refuse to believe that no one in BBC nor in the government of Margaret Thatcher had any idea or clue or were not suspicious about what Jimmy Savile was doing. I refuse to believe. I have read somewhere on the internet that he has raped many children and adults in the television center, hospitals, dressing room, schools, and his caravan. So no one had the idea all this time? Highly unlikely. This documentary, Jimmy Savile, British Horror Story, is the reminder of the disgraced that depicts one of Britain's darkest chapters, that inflicts an eternal regret about the irresponsibility of the higher commands who choose to stay silent and preferred not to address the elephant in the room.
Are you in some way trying to punish yourself?
Not at all. The only time you punish yourself is when you are with young ladies. And then you punish yourself because you're such a villain. What is how you should be kind to them and you're not kind to them. And you squeeze them and make them go ouch and things like that.
I'm Sunny Knaik.